Good morning, Jordan. How are you doing today?
Good morning. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on this episode of Marketing Mavericks. And we call it Marketing Mavericks, but a lot of your experience is really in sales. With sales and marketing, they get aligned, so it all works together. But Jordan, I know we've known each other for a long time, and really started a business relationship when you were at SalesLoft. And we didn't necessarily work with you at SalesLoft, but I know you championed us and helped, people trust to consume media. So thank you for being you. And, we still have a great relationship with your former employer at
Yeah.
SalesLoft.
Good people know good people. That's my mentality.
Good. I love that. And recently, you have started your own business. And it's a fantastic concept. So for those of you for those listening who don't know you, I would love for you to give just your short elevator pitch of what your company is and what you're solving for.
Sure. So our company name, or our company, is Mi Alma. Mi Alma is Spanish for my soul. And the simplest way to explain what we do is we help families get the relief that they're looking for during life's toughest times. So I often say that as humans, we're really, really good at happy things. We're really good at babies. We're really good at weddings. And part of the reason why we're so good at it is because there's tools and technology and process in place that makes it easy for us to show that expression of support in a meaningful way. And we believe that those same needs arise during life's tough moments, whether that be a loss, whether that be a horrible diagnosis, a major accident. We want to make it easier for supporters to show up and show those expressions of support through what we call a support registry. So again, it's similar concept as what you would see on the wedding or baby side, whether that's through Babylist or Amazon, but taking that concept and extracting it towards life's toughest moments so that we remove that fog of confusion and that awkwardness that sets in when things aren't going the way that you intended your life to be planned.
So that's super interesting, because I think about what might have been in the market beforehand. And you're right, there's really not much. Like, when somebody does pass away, there is the website where, you can give, the obituary, and you can leave comments. And sometimes people will set up GoFundMes. But what is that all that was in the market as you guys were doing your research?
It's a great question. So I always say that people need more than funds and food. I think that in our culture, it's kind of our knee jerk, like, oh, I'll send them money, I'll make a donation, or I'll drop off a casserole. Through our research, what we've learned is that the needs of grievers, and again, grievers kind of more broadly defined, are far more vast than that. So in the market today, of course, you have GoFundMe on the fund side. So that would be, in some ways competitive, or you would see a meal train, maybe even a caring bridge for updates. So our goal is to strive to reduce the amount of tools that you need in these traumatic moments to organize that. And additionally is to provide that volunteer element, that time and energy element. I've talked to hundreds, if not thousands, of grievers, and they say, it was really nice to get all these casseroles, or it was really nice to have this GoFundMe, but what I really needed was someone to walk my dog. What I really needed was someone to mow my lawn, or what I really needed was someone to help me go through belongings. Those were the things that I needed. Those were the things that would have been the most helpful. And currently we see an opportunity to fill that void, to make it easier for people to solicit help, as well as simply raise their hand to say, I'd like to do this for you. So if nothing else, the family feels that feeling of support from the community at large, whether or not they take them up on that action or not.
Yeah. And it's fascinating, because you mentioned at the very beginning of this podcast that there are so many tools for the happy things. Why, from your research, are there not these tools? Why?
Yeah, it's a great question. So happy times are easier for us as humans to wrap our arms around. Grief, on the other hand, is something that our country, and again, I would say our country specifically, I don't think all countries or all cultures struggle with this as much. And even within our cultures, different religions have different approaches to things like this. But grief as a topic is somewhat taboo. And
Mhm.
that's why it's so awkward and uncomfortable, because people are so afraid of doing or saying the wrong thing that they don't do anything at all. And because there's so much awkwardness, this huge gap is created between the family and the community at large. So that's largely why people haven't, I believe that's why there's the opportunity, because there hasn't been, it's been difficult to kind of navigate through that human psychology of wanting to shut down during life's toughest times. We want to use technology to bridge that gap and to teach people how to support and kind of fight through their own uncomfortableness with it, because we know that the intention is there, the good intention is there. But as you know, this is where technology can really come in to solve a great, beautiful problem. And we've done so, through Mi Alma.
That's so cool. It's because I've felt the same thing, whether I've been grieving or had had a friend or a colleague's been grieving. You at least me personally, I exactly what you say. I'm so afraid of saying the wrong thing that might say the most general thing, or I
Yep.
might not see this person for a while, and I might just like hope enough time has passed where I don't have to say much, and it's an awful feeling inside,
It's an
right?
awful
But
feeling, and you're not alone. A lot of people tell us that, or they don't make a donation or do the thing or volunteer, and they feel like the time has passed, that it's elapsed, and now it's too late. So
Mhm.
part of our company and our brand isn't just the technology of bridging the gap of the technical support, of the actual support, but also just educating people holistically, supporters in our communities holistically, on what it is like to grieve, and how that it's never too late to reach out to that friend or that family member to say, I'm thinking of you. Grief is a very, very misunderstood word and emotion. So there's, again, a lot of opportunity to do a lot of good. And we're very excited.
It's so interesting you say that because I got married 2 months ago, right? And now, whenever I see someone, the first thing they say is congratulations. And no one worries about has enough time elapsed, right?
Correct.
But that's a
Correct.
happy thing, right?
Right. That's
And now
exactly.
we're talking about a sad thing,
And
and
now you don't
you
know what to
hope
do.
enough time has elapsed so you don't have to say anything.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
Exactly. So that's, and
It's
again, this is where
everything you're
I'm
saying
so,
makes so much sense.
yeah, and I feel that too. To be clear, I'm not perfect in this area. I've just been someone that's observed a lot of traumatic moments, both loss and horrible diagnosis from friends and families, and I've always been that person that's like, is this it? Like, is this all I can do? There's got to be more. And so, in some ways, I feel like we're building this technology for people like me that feel inclined to say, like, there's got to be more that we can be doing, not just short term, but long term, and not just functionally, but emotionally, to help kind of help these people along their grief journey, whatever that grief looks like.
Oh, really, really interesting. And
Thank
thanks for
you.
the summary.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to kind of bridge this conversation into kind of how you are going to market with Mi Alma, but also I think it'd be really interesting to hear a comparison from your perspective, being a key account executive at SalesLoft, going to market with the number one rated sales enablement software, but being one piece of the puzzle
Sure.
versus with Mi Alma, you're really leading a strategy for a much smaller organization. So I'd love to
Yeah.
hear kind of your perspective on what's similar, what's different, things like that.
Yeah. So SalesLoft was just, anyone that's heard about SalesLoft knows they built an incredible culture, and they built the type of company that you got to see a lot of things. The leadership team with Kyle Porter and Rob Foreman, it was part of our values for them to really expose more than they needed to us, especially in the early days, about the business. So I feel very fortunate to have been on a very positive side of the startup story. So I credit them for my startup bug, for my entrepreneurial spirit, because I would say prior to that, I didn't really know that I wanted to build something. It was only until I saw it in action and saw the power of being very intentional about culture, very intentional about customers and how you cultivate customers, and seeing, of course, the great pride and the great fulfillment that comes with building something for good. So yes, it's quite different. When I was at Sales Loft, I was selling. I was an SDR for a year and then moved up through the sales ranks every year after that. And it was incredible. And I was always taught to run and sales to run it like you were the CEO. Run your sales cycle, run your book like you're the CEO of your own business. And that was always such sound advice because well, obviously I was not the CEO of Sales Loft. It gave me a level of authority and control and almost even maturity to take a step back from deals and really diagnose what's really best for the customer here and how can I best be a partner here. Now, as at Mi Alma, the thing that's so fun is really expanding my aperture from beyond sales. I was a sport marketing major. And so I've been able to dip my toes into marketing, sales, certainly communications. When you get to be at a pre-seed startup, you get to do everything, which is both overwhelming, but also incredibly, incredibly exciting because you learn quicker than you can in any other specific role. So I find myself doing all these things that I didn't even know I was capable of. And I think as a woman, especially, women in particular, we like to think that we need to be in our box and we need to have like certain credentials and qualifications in order to do certain things. And this chapter has really given me the opportunity to push myself outside of boundaries, even if I don't have the qualifications. And that is really, really fulfilling. And you have to, at this stage of company, you have to find the little wins because the big wins are still further away than you can see. Mm-hmm. And that day-to-day kind of opportunity to get better as a company and as an individual is something it's hard to be matched at a company where you're solely an individual contributor.
That makes so much sense. And, I can somewhat relate, right? I've started my own business 11 years ago and you got to try things, right? I'm sure you and Scott, like I found things, okay, I'm now realizing I'm good at this. And Scott, you're like, okay, now I'm good at this. But you probably tried a lot of different things to see what you were good at.
That's exactly right.
And that's kind of how it's worked for us at Consume is like when Michael and I started again, we were 21 years old, but we're like, okay, let's try everything. And ultimately we'll go the ways in which we can provide the most value for the business. So I think that's interesting. And I kind of wanted to dive in a little bit further on that. So you and your husband, Scott, are the two principals at Mi Alma. What's that like working with your husband and living with your husband and raising kids with your husband every day?
I get a lot of that. Like, how do you do? The working together is easy. The parenting together is a different story. So I am very blessed to have 3 children under 5-year-old. I have a 3-year-old and I have a 9-month-old. So life is very full. It is very, very full. It can be overwhelming at times. I will say both of our personalities are such that we know how to embrace chaos and we know how fortunate we are to be able to both work together and to be able to use our time to work on something that we really believe in. Do we have our disagreements? Of course, but I would have a disagreement with any of my CEOs. Kyle Porter can tell you that too. So I think that we have a nice balance. We are very, very strong communicators. And as I believe in any culture, in any company, transparency is, to me, the number one quality, characteristic, value that you have to have. And so when you're married to someone, it becomes even more important because those things can slip into other parts and we never want to create that friction. But it's been fun. And I say this all the time, but I don't know that I could work with my husband on any company, but on this company that we believe in with so much conviction and we know is so good, not just for the people we know, but for the world, for this country. That's what gets us up out of bed every day. It's like we know we're doing something very, very positive.
That's awesome because you're right. Not every company is the same, right? In fact, every company is different. Building a widget, but if you are
this has to be meaningful. This has to, and this idea, like we complement each other. We He has certain strengths and skill sets that I don't have. He has certain things that he's very comfortable doing that I'm less comfortable doing. And we can balance each other out. And it will be something that we will constantly be reevaluating. But for
Mm-hmm.
now, it's something that has overall been a net positive.
That's awesome. Now I want to kind of ask you, from a sales and marketing perspective, really two questions. First of all, what do you feel like is most important with, how you are going to the market with sales and marketing? But
Yeah.
also, where are you seeing the most impact? Because I feel like those can also kind of be a little bit different.
Sure. So our focus as of now has been to take this to market differently than call it the GoFundMe's or the meal trains of the world. What we've really focused on is the kind of this grass top strategy of how can we mobilize um, community partners that are naturally inclined to support people during life's toughest moments. So what I mean by that is houses of worship, certain nonprofits, hospice groups in certain situations. Um, those types of partners play a natural role in someone's life, good or bad, happy or sad. So we spend a lot of our times talking to these organizations around this tool that we have for them that costs them nothing, right? It's free to set up, it's free for their families, and it allows them, specifically on the houses of worship front, to mobilize their congregations, their members, towards action in these difficult moments. And one of the things that I think, it's starting to get talked about more is membership across the board for churches and synagogues is decreasing. So that's something we're aware of. But so it's not about obviously increasing membership, but it is about increasing engagement. So we
Mm-hmm.
provide this vehicle for their members to be more engaged and to feel more a part of
Mm-hmm.
that community. And frankly, it allows them to feel more value from that institution. And so it ultimately kind of brings them back in. And so that, our goal with those types of groups has effectively been to be the operating system of support, because it should be easy to help a family that's going through a hard time get the support that they need. And these groups, they're understaffed, they're overworked, and they are on very clear timelines. If it's a synagogue, they're praying on a certain day. If it's a church, it's the day after. So they have like a very, very clear idea of what they need to do. So they don't have a lot of time in between. So we've had to create a product that's simple enough for them to use and stand up. And from there, the goal is that they email it out, and that their community just gets to go to work, because now we've removed the ambiguity of, well, what do they need? Or how can I help? And at the same time, we're shielding the family from having to answer that question 100 times, because now there's one clear place to get direction on what they can be doing to be the most valuable, that would be the most valuable to them.
It's amazing. And you hear the term community so often,
Yeah,
not just in like houses of worship, but also in business, because it's so important, right? Ultimately, a community is a group of like-minded people who do want to share and support each other, right? I
that's
don't know
right.
if that's the exact definition, I just made it up, but
It
seems like
sounds
it makes sense. So if you are if you are ultimately putting your product in a community, and the whole idea behind the product, which is going into a community, is to help people, and that's in some way, shape, or form the definition of community, seems like it's a win all the way around, right?
Yeah, exactly, and that's exactly it. And I've observed that same thought that I see this in technology all the time. People always want to build community. The thing that's so special about Mi Alma, though, is it really is community. It's real community, and it's bringing people together that don't even know each other sometimes. So it's, yes, it could be the church community, but it's also the community of people that want to rally around this family during this difficult moment.
Mm-hmm.
The secret sauce of Mi Alma is how easy it is to share. So if something tragic happens to a family, let's say, a young woman gets diagnosed with a horrible a cancer diagnosis. Now it allows not just her church community, but her former sorority sisters or her employers to all be inspired to take action in one place. And I think that's the community that I get excited about. It's the individual communities of that individual that want to do something, but simply need to be told what to do and and it needs to be made easy for them because life is so busy and life is so full. And that's the community element of this that honestly gives me chills because it has the ability to really change the way that we as humans connect. Like we talked about earlier, because people shut down during these difficult times, this really has the ability to be this beautiful glue to bridge all of these communities together, and rally everyone around this family.
It's awesome. It's a heartwarming story, right? Again, Consume Media works with a lot of different businesses, and some are very mission oriented. Some are more, how can I, it's more business oriented, right? And I think it's always is a feel good feeling for us at Consume when we are working with something that it's more of a business relationship or a business connection, but an emotional connection as well. Something you can relate to, something you can feel. And again, it's a little bit just outside of the standard capitalism of America.
Right, exactly,
because again, you said that America has grief is felt more taboo in America. And I wonder if there is some sort of relationship there between, the capitalistic society that we run in and, some of these other countries where their values are a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked at it from this perspective. I will say, one of the things I've studied over the last couple of years is again Mexican culture, like Day of the Dead, like these cultures in Mexico. They don't shy away. There's no awkwardness. They know exactly what to do, and there's this overwhelming sense of support. And that doesn't mean they don't grieve. That doesn't mean there's never awkwardness. It just means that culturally they have rituals and they all kind of know what to do. I think part of what makes it different in this country is just we're made up of such different cultures. We all have different backgrounds. We all have different faiths. We all have different origins. And that melting pot kind of can sometimes create confusion. I'm Jewish, and when my grandfather died a couple of years ago, I had a number of people reach out to me saying, what can I do? What would be appropriate? And part of that is just a lack of understanding of how we can support one another if they don't look exactly like you or they weren't raised exactly like you.
And so it's very, very interesting because I didn't. You're right. It's a melting pot here in America.
Yeah, it's a total melting pot, which is beautiful.
Everyone's gonna.
Yeah. There's pros and cons. And again, grief. I think this is important to say. Like, grief is not death. Grief is not bereavement. Grief is the emotional suffering you feel when something or someone has been taken away from you. And if we as citizens, as people, can understand that definition more fully, we can be better friends and we can create better connections and relationships because we understand what they're experiencing. And again, that could be a divorce. That could be, that doesn't have to be, my grandfather just got moved to hospice. And I think that understanding those difficult emotions is just so important to elevate. It's so important to elevate that conversation today more now than ever.
Amazing. Awesome. Jordan, I feel like we could talk for a really long time, but we do try to keep these episodes to 20 to 25 minutes. So to wrap this up, I would love for you to direct anyone who might be listening to how they can learn more information about you, your team, and Mi Alma.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Yes, anyone who's interested in learning more about our company, of course, visit us at www.mialma.com. We're also very active on Instagram. Our handle is at the.me.alma. You'll see a lot of me there, actually, where I talk not just really about the product, but more about the concept of elevating the conversation around grief, and more importantly, how we can support those experiencing grief. But thank you so much. We're just getting started, and the opportunities are, there's so much room here for this to become the way that we support people during life's most difficult moments.
If you didn't say you had vertical vlog videos on your Instagram, I was going to say that, and you do a great job with those.
Yeah,
But thank you so much for being on the show, and
of course.
thanks for your time. This has been great.
Thanks, Leo.